Law with a goal to keep you and your family safe while cracking down on the amount of Airbnbs and other short-term rentals.
Sometimes those short-term rentals are a problem. So how does this city council proposal plan on doing exactly that? 19 Investigates Gabby Hart in the newsroom to show us how. Gabby.
Duffy, you said it, those short-term rentals can be a problem, and over the last year, we've seen several violent crimes play out at some of those. Most notably, 3 teens who were shot, one of them killed during a party at an Airbnb in Slavic Village. That happened back in October, and now the city is taking a stand and hoping to make sure something like that doesn't happen again.
Councilman Kerry McCormack taking steps to make Cleveland safer.
Problem short-term rentals. We don't hate Airbnbs. They're a part of our economy, but we want to make sure that they are, under control.
He's introduced a measure cracking down on the amount of short-term rentals in Cleveland's neighborhoods. He's been looking for a solution since a shooting in his ward last year. That shooting at an Airbnb in Tremont injured 2 teenagers. Ordinance 588-2024 would require all short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods to be licensed and then to reapply on a yearly basis, paying a $150 fee. Any short-term rental that's not licensed won't be able to advertise according to this proposed rule. It also calls to make the maximum number of people allowed in these rentals 2 people per bedroom plus 2 additional people. And each rental must provide proof of at least $300,000 in liability insurance. The ordinance goes a step further and calls for fines to be imposed against anyone who violates the rules, in addition to any other civil or criminal penalties that might come about during the operation of these short-term rentals.
That ordinance has just been introduced, so it's not clear right now if or when it could pass and take effect. We will keep you up to date as we learn more. Nikki?